Today we're playing this upgrade 2.0 map. We're playing Toilet Factory. Make sure to use Endo World Support Critical Damage Shop and Toilet Paper. Alright, here we go. I'm pointing. You're still up. You little cute. Okay, we can stay here, right? We're okay. This is the scare. This is what was. That means he's driving. Pictures. This is the scary story about the singing. One night. That one. So she said, she continued to try to scream, but she just kept listening to it. And she knew the sound of the chirping outside of the window. There was a large tree right outside Jamie's window, and that's where the sound was coming from. Jamie got annoyed, so she got up and screamed out the window, come on, she was alone. She listened for the flashing wings, but there was nothing. But then she realized it was 2 a.m. and the bird would be singing at this hour. Confused, Jamie then got up and looked out the window again, and she could make 2 dark silhouettes out in the tree. They looked almost human. They were sitting on the branch of a tree. These are pictures. This is child. These are the. These are. This is proof. This is the scary story about the weird day. One morning, a man found himself walking along a deserted street in a small town. He had no idea what he was doing or how he got there. He didn't know where he was earlier or what time it was. He then saw a woman walking towards him and he stopped her and said, "I'm afraid I forgot my watch. Can you please tell me the time?"
But when the woman saw him, she instantly screamed and ran away. The man was shocked, and a few minutes later, he noticed that other people were afraid of him too. Whenever they saw him, they just ran in the other direction. He couldn't figure out what was going on or what was wrong. All he knew was that he was confused and scared. He then thought maybe his wife would come pick him up. So he found a phone and called their home. He was expecting to hear his wife's voice, but instead he heard a stranger's. He then asked if his wife was home. The voice then said, "I'm sorry, but she isn't. Her husband died a few days ago in a horrible car crash, and she's attending his funeral." This is the scariest story about the whole town. There was a woman named Cindy who was driving cross country. It was late and she was very tired, so she decided to stop at a hotel to get a room. When she got there, she got her room key and went to the elevator. In the elevator was a little boy with
I was supposed to go.
He looked at Cindy and said, "Do you know what happened here?" Cindy then chuckled and said, "I'm so sorry, but I don't." The doors then opened and Cindy got out and went to her room. When she got there, she was trying to sleep, but she couldn't stop thinking about what the boy said. So she took out her phone and looked up the hotel to see what happened. As she read, her stomach dropped. A young boy was kidnapped and brought to the hotel, where he was brutally assaulted and finally murdered. Cindy then looked at the picture of the boy, and it was the boy who was in the elevator. These pictures, this is the scariest story about the pool. There was a man named Eric. This is the scariest story about the singing. There was a woman named Sarah who had a husband named Nathan. Every morning, Sarah would wake up to him singing, and she loved it. But as of recently, she hasn't been enjoying it. He died 3 months ago, and she really wished he'd stop singing by now. This is the scariest story about the singing. There was a woman named Sarah who had a husband named Nathan. Every morning, Sarah would wake up to him singing, and she loved it. But as of recently, she hasn't been enjoying it. He died 3 months ago, and she really wished he'd stop singing by now. This is the scariest story about the accident. There was a man named John who was driving home from work one day. He was pretty tired and couldn't wait to get home to take a nap. John then dozed off for a second, and he almost didn't see the car speeding towards him on the intersection until his mother shouted in warning. The disturbing part is John's mother died 6 years earlier in a car accident. This is the scariest story about the accident. There was a man named John who was driving home from work. This is the scariest story about the noise. There was a young girl named Nina who was trying to sleep one night. She was about to fall asleep when she heard something hitting her window. She assumed it was just a tree branch and ignored it. But over and over again, she continued to hear something hitting her window. Nina then got up out of bed and went over to the window to see what it was. And she immediately froze in horror. Outside the window was a man with his hands against the glass. He then smiled and said, "Let me in." Nina slowly shook her head no as a tear rolled down her face. But the man just ignored her. He then slowly slid the window open and came into Nina's room. This is the scariest story about the waiter. There was a girl named Julie who went on a blind date. Her date took her to a restaurant, and although he was very nice, she wasn't really into him. Halfway through the meal, she was bored and was already thinking of excuses to make to leave. The waiter could tell she was bored, and he kept smiling at her. While Julie's date was in the bathroom, the waiter approached her and asked if she was okay. She told him that she was on a blind date and wasn't having too much fun. It turned out the waiter was about to get off work, and he offered Julie a ride home if she waited another 10 minutes. She was about to say yes when her date suddenly came back from the bathroom. She then shook her head, smiled at the waiter, and said no thanks. The next night, Julie was watching TV when breaking news came on the screen saying a girl was murdered behind a restaurant last night. Julie noticed it was the same restaurant she was at. They then said the police already caught the killer and put a picture of him on the screen. It was the waiter. This is the scariest story about the washing machine. There was a teenage girl who was babysitting 2 young children one night. After she put the kids to bed, she went downstairs to watch TV. But suddenly she heard a noise coming from the basement. It was the washing machine starting up. She was about to go and shut it off, but when she opened the basement door, the noise stopped. Shrugging her shoulders, she went back to the living room to watch TV. But 5 minutes later, the washing machine started up again. She then went to the basement door and began walking down the stairs. She had only gone down a few steps when the noise stopped again. She then went back upstairs to watch TV, and she heard the noise start again. Worried, she went upstairs, got the children, and called the police. When they arrived, they went down into the basement and searched it, and what they found was absolutely terrifying. In the basement was a man with an axe. He was hiding behind the washing machine, trying to lure down the babysitter so he could kill her. This is the scary story about the washing machine. There was a teenage girl who was babysitting two young children one night. After she put the kids to bed, she went downstairs to watch TV. But suddenly she heard a noise coming from the basement. It was the washing machine starting up. She was about to go and shut it off, but when she opened the basement door, the noise stopped. Shrugging her shoulders, she went back to the living room to watch TV. But 5 minutes later, the washing machine started up again. She then went to the basement door and began walking down the stairs. What if the earth stopped? These pictures, somebody, these are, these are, these are, this, these are, this is proof. This is what would happen if these are, this is proof that this is what, these are the movies you were kidding. These are candies that were, these are the history, these are, this what if these pictures, someone, these are, these, these, this, these are, these are, this is what would happen if Earth was a utopia. If Earth was a utopia, there would be universal harmony. These are the skip movies. You were these are the history. These are only, these are never tried. These are skip. This is what would happen. Could these are times. This is what you, this is what you, these are, this is proof. This is what, these are, this is the scary story about the packages. One day, a woman named Liz is watching TV when her doorbell rang. She then got up and went to the door, and there was a package. Liz then took it back inside and opened it. It was empty besides a small note in it that said, "Hello, Linz. I'll be sending more packages soon." Linz immediately began to worry and wondered who sent the package. But the next day she received another, and another the next day. And each one had the same note in it. Linz finally assumed it was just a prank, and she stopped worrying. Her doorbell rang, and there was another package. Linz then picked it up, and this time it felt heavier. She then went to the kitchen and opened it and screamed in utter horror. Inside the package was a man's severed head with a note that said, "This was the last man I sent packages to. Now it's your turn, Linz." This is proof that this is the scariest story about the shack. One day, a boy named Jim and his friend Josh were exploring the woods when they suddenly came across a small shack. Curious, the two boys went inside to check it out. But right when they both stepped in, they stopped in confusion. Inside the shack were hundreds of creepy dolls. Jim looked at Josh and said, "Yo, we have to go, bro." Josh then said, "Wait, I see a big doll in the corner. Let's check it out." They both then walked over and looked at the doll. They were both amazed how real this doll looked. After looking at it for a couple seconds, they both turned around and were about to walk out, when suddenly the doll grabbed Jim's arm. He screamed in horror. It wasn't a doll, it was a young boy. The young boy then said, "Please help me, he will be back soon." But as soon as Jim got loose of the boy's grip, him and Josh ran away and never looked back. This is the scariest story about the shack. One day, a boy named Jim, this is the scariest story about the special drink.
She was drinking what?
Kim who had a daughter named Kate. One day, Kim walked by Kate's room and saw something weird. Kate was drinking some sort of red liquid in a cup. Kim didn't know what it was, so she knocked on her door and said, "Honey, what are you doing?" Kate looked at her and said, "I'm drinking my special drink." Kim laughed and brushed it off and walked out of the room. The next day, Kim was in the shed outside when she saw something horrific. In the back of the shed were countless dead squirrels cut open. Kim screamed and was about to run out when suddenly Kate walked into the shed and said, Mom, why are you scared? This is how I make my special drink. I have to practice on them before I move up. This is the scary story about the elevator. There was a woman named Judy who came in an apartment building looking around. When she suddenly got in the elevator to go to the roof. But right when the doors were about to close, a man stopped it with his hand and stepped in. He then smiled at Judy and pressed a button to his phone. The doors then shut and the elevator began moving. But suddenly the elevator stopped and the lights went out. Judy began freaking out and pulled out her phone for some light. She then pointed it at the man and he was still smiling. He then turned and looked at Judy and said, "The elevator will be stuck for a while. I wanted to give myself enough time so I could do everything I wanted to." Judy then screamed as the man jumped out. A couple hours later, Judy's dead mutilated body was found inside the elevator. This is the scariest story, but this is what would happen. This is why you should never leave kids alone. Up first, these kids covered their white dog all different colors. Just imagine being a parent and coming home to see them. This is what would happen. This is the scariest story about the lake. There was a mother named Anna who had a daughter named Lily. Anytime something bad happened in Anna's life, she blamed her daughter Lily. Lily always tried to say that it wasn't her, but Anna never believed her. So one day, Anna brought Lily down to the lake and drowned her. This brought Anna peace for a little bit, but it didn't change the bad luck. Anna then felt extremely guilty about what she did to her daughter, so she then drowned herself in the same lake. Legend has it that if you go to this lake at night, you can see Anna's ghost holding her dead daughter Lily. This is the scariest story about the predictions. There was a little girl named Jade who was born with an unusual gift. She could predict the future. Her parents were amazed by her predictions, but they never took them seriously. Until one day when Jade told her father that he was going to die. Her father laughed it off, thinking it was just a silly game. But as the days went on, he started to feel that something was not right. One day he was walking down the street when he suddenly collapsed. The doctor said that he had a heart attack and there was nothing they could do to save him. As her father took his last breath, Jade looked up at her mother and said, "You only have a couple days left." This is what would happen if parents had...
Okay, we're just gonna have a seat and we're gonna wait for our mission. That's over. That's over. And go! 2018. That's ooh. Get there! How much for this? 33.7K. How much is that? So it's the fifth one. $16. It sells for $16. Alright, and Scout. I think that's enough. Let me go see. No, it's not. So okay, well. sheet. No, I can't. You guys just gonna have to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Bye.